welcome to the session of SCOPA. Chief Whip, Bosman, where is the DA members?
Sorry?
The members, your members, the other members.
This is the DA members.
Yeah, the others, permanent.
I can only ask the chief of the ANC.
Okay, we're going to start. It's past 2. We'll
I think
just
some of
start.
them went to Food Lovers Market.
Okay, let's welcome the members to introduce yourselves, and then the AG Audit Committee. Next to you is Mr. Dustin Davids, and then Ms. Lizette Kruter. Members, over to you for introductions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon. Derek Wessels, also I think I'm an alternate member, but chairperson of the Department of Infrastructure.
Number French Mbombo, the member of ESCOPA.
Good afternoon, Gillian Bosman. I'm an alternate member standing in for member Benedicte van Binnen.
We just waiting for you, member Nkondla, to introduce yourself.
Afternoon, my name is Nomin Nkondla. I'm an alternate to this committee.
Thank you very much. Over to you, the AG, and then the Audit Committee.
Afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and members. My name is Singita Callan, a business unit leader.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Preston Whaley, the senior manager on audit.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. My name is Ashley Alkers. I'm a deputy business unit leader in the Auditor General's office.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. I'm Tasneem Adams, the Stakeholder Liaison Manager responsible for the Western Cape AG office.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. My name is Comfort Bunting. I chair the Audit Committee.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. My name is Ibrahim Abrams. I'm on the Audit Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those introductory remarks. We're just going to go straight over to the AG for the report. You know, we've been here now for at least 2 days. So your colleagues familiarize themselves with the shift of the culture strategy, and shifting public sector towards good. So we're familiar with that. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I will take you through from page 4 of the document. So the audit outcome of the Department of Infrastructure is unqualified opinion with no findings. We do acknowledge the robust control environment that was inherited from the previous Western Cape Department of Transport and Public Works. But there is areas of concern that we want management to focus on. So there were shortcomings within all programs that we scoped in. So we identified some misstatements and accuracy issues. And then in the reasons for the misstatements was there wasn't a thorough review process of supporting evidence against listings. And this should happen on a regular basis, and therefore there was some duplicate information in some
first, that is 148 to 181, and then we're going to ask questions, and then we're going to do part E, PFMA compliance, that's 217 to 232, and then we'll do part F, 233 to 242, and then we'll do financial statements. You see, this is the only department with a part G, so I had to check. I had to tell my coordinator he has a part G as well. So, Minister, over to you and HOD. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, and indeed, again, good afternoon to all the members. It's a distinct honor for me and actually in our department to actually, appear before the Public Accounts Committee to account for what was our first full financial year, a year within which we got a clean bill of health in terms of a clean audit. Given that we merged two departments with different cultures and systems, it's quite a phenomenal achievement, and I know I do applaud and thank my HOD and the team for that, and I look forward to the engagement with your members. Thank you, Chair.
You're fine, HOD. We're fine. Members, we're going to do governance. We've been here for 2 days, so we know it's 2 members, 2 questions per member, and then there can be a follow-up, and then we can go over to the second round. So I'm just allowing 2 questions per member, follow-up, and then we can go to the second round. So members, over to you for governance. Can I see some hands? Member Nkontlo. Over to you first, Member Nkontlo.
An obvious question for me, Chair, on the key risks of this particular department, which I think the Minister has been very vocal about, which is the safety matter. I see it's only as it relates to safety and security of the departmental staff. Whilst this is a matter that is sort of a big issue for everybody, and perhaps I'm missing why it may not be viewed as a key risk of this particular department, considering that we are an infrastructure department, we have consolidated all infrastructure projects, and we have been dealing with this particular problem, which actually affects your delivery as a department. What, in your view, is the reason why this does not find, ways into your key risks as a department? That's the first question. The second one is that I think you mentioned in page 151. I think the 2 risks, the decay of provincial immovable assets, the inability to stem fragmentation and erosion of infrastructure. I just want to understand, I think, especially when you relate to cutting of infrastructure budgets when faced with financial constraints, what's the level of, in your observation, where is this problem stemming from? I understand you are a new department. They call it an old wine in a new bottle, because this at least is a department that was existing, has just been reconfigured. So I would want to understand, Chair, when you speak about, the contributing factors, they're including insufficient capital and maintenance budget, uncertain budget allocations for over time. Are you trying to say both as Parliament and as department, there's not been sufficient allocation of budget for maintenance? I'm trying to understand what exactly this issue mean, and what's the extent of it, so that I think as people who are sitting here and also in budgets, we can be able to follow it up based on what is being raised here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions on governance? Over to you, Minister and HOD.
Chairperson, thank you. To the Honourable Nkontlo, thank you for the question. In terms of the safety of our staff and why it's not listed as a risk, because it is listed as part of the overall provincial government in our risk register, which is now not included here. We had it per branch and for our department, as did other departments as well, and we were advised to actually then list it, and it forms part of the overall provincial government's risk register. That's why it's not listed in our report. In terms of page 151, the decay of the provincial immovable asset base to below mandatory standards, among others. And I'll ask the Richard and the team just to fill in here. In terms of the roads component, Honourable Member, as you rightfully say, you know, this department is actually a merger of two former departments. And in terms of the roads infrastructure, in the previous three terms of office, there's been consistent reports on the inadequate budget allocated to just the maintenance of our road infrastructure to meet the world norms and standards. And within the annual report, it does give you the graph of what I'm referring to as well. In terms of our human settlements component, remember, because we do own assets as well in terms of rental stock, which has been in existence for many decades. And some of these assets, you know, due to inadequate budget, we have seen, as it's rightfully stated there to you, you know, that what is required to maintain those rental stock in terms of human settlements versus the current budget allocation, which we do get, the two will not come together, and the income generated through our rental stock will never be sufficient enough actually for maintenance of our rental stock. And those are about two prime examples. Others as well as, remember, we're also the custodian of certain assets of other departments. Again, we are reliant on what they allocate in terms of their budget for maintenance in that regard. And there is a number of schools, there's a number of former clinics, etc. within this province, which again, we are but the custodian and they are the user department. So if they do not budget adequately, then, you know, it does become a problem in terms of the decay which we do observe in our provincial asset base. Richard?
Thanks, Chair. Just to add, so Member Nkondlo asked, are we saying there's not enough money allocated towards maintenance? That's correct. And that has been the case over decades. And so the maintenance backlog has grown. There is simply not enough money in the fiscus to deal with maintenance. And therefore, you would recall that this department has had a strategy as far as, but in particular in its road space, is concerned that we would not build new roads unless it is to unlock the economy, and that we would maintain the roads with the budgets that we have. And this has kept the current portfolio of roads in the condition that it is. But with time, and specifically with the flood damage that has occurred, with the backlog in the maintenance as it stands, the backlog just grows and grows, and we need to find a different way or different funding in order to address this problem.
Follow-up, Member Nkondlo?
No, Chair. I think I'm covered with the response, but I think it raises a serious concern that we have to collectively deal with, because I think with one's hindsight on transport and public works, then I think what is being raised on the maintenance has always been an issue. I agree. But indeed, now we're complicated with the situation of the climate change. And we've seen the erosion of roads as the first thing. And if we're going to be sitting with this particular problem, and for me, I think as a member in this particular committee, perhaps also a member of budget, we need to be assisted by the department, having looked at the trend line of whether is it a budgeting problem, is it a planning problem, you know, what are these loopholes that we need to be closing, you know, so that we do not have this particular crisis, because we saw the impact of the erosion of these roads, you know, when the floods are happening. If indeed, and I think the complexity of this department is the fact that, as I think the Minister and the HOD are saying, you know, there's a user department which also must come into the conversation. So I think this is I appreciate that it's there as a risk, whilst it's a bit complicated in the manner in which they put there. I think the more they explain, it makes sense. I would want that maybe as part of our resolutions, we'll have to be assisted to move on how we really look at budgeting for infrastructure. Because if we don't, and we make an assumption because it's a provincial government issue. I'm not happy, Minister, that it is said that the threat of construction mafia must not be in the department, because this department is at the coalface of that problem, even if it's a departmental, but the very department that deals with that is this one. But I'm saying, I think it's important that we get this department helping us, because it's in the growth for job strategy that it's infrastructure led. So if it's infrastructure led and part of that infrastructure is maintenance, but you have challenges in terms of how you finance maintenance over and above new infrastructure, because you can't continue to buy new assets if you're not maintaining the old ones. So I think it's more a comment, and it's actually scary to think of it at this point. Thanks.
Member Pet Lekker, I saw your hand.
No, thank you, Chair. Mine was actually to latch on what Member Nkondo has raised, to say there must be a follow-up in relation to how these two are linked, in ensuring that as part of governance, these matters are attended to. I'm sure you would have noticed that in the previous meeting we had, I highlighted the issue of extortion as part of the risks that have not been mentioned. And I think it's important that we looked into it and see how we tie the two together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Is that the one thing I appreciate is, what the HOD said. If we need to unlock, then we'll have the economy, then we'll look at a new road, but otherwise we will maintain. But like you rightly say, that needs to be brainstormed. But I'm sure that the department are thinking about these things, as we go ahead, because you can't now have your infrastructure and it's after many years, money will go down the drain if you don't maintain it. So HOD.
Thank you, Chair. Just towards the comments that was made by Member Nkondo, to say the department also annually publishes what is known as a roads asset management plan. That actually goes to show you exactly what happens in the deterioration space, what happens from a needs budget, the technical budget of what we need, what happens from an allocation point of view, and it shows you that over the last decade, there's been no real growth in real terms of the roads budget. But we publish this every year. We table it in front of the cabinet, and we are very willing, Chair, to then come and make a presentation so that you see the detail around the backlog and what it means from an asset point of view.
Thank you very much, members. That is governance. Let's move over to part E, PFMA compliance, 217 to 232. Members, over to you. I always make this comment, and I see you on page 222. We usually look at the 30 days of invoices paid, and I see you've got an explanation here, but I believe that is just most probably, as you put here, mainly to the interface of system errors. The question that I just want to pose, and usually when we look at this, it's you don't want to cripple small business where they cannot pay staff. Do you look at that? And, when it comes to that, because big business can survive, but small business cannot survive. And that's why government is very strong on this. If you can just give us an indication, I can see the monetary value and also the amounts of invoices not paid, but just give us some assurance on that. Members, is there questions? I'm going to let the HOD Minister maybe respond to this, and then I'll give you a round to look at further questions. HOD?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the 30-day payment issue is something that we monitor as a top management on a monthly basis. We draw reports, we check where it happens, we check what is the reasons. But specifically in the public works space, we used to use a system from National Public Works that causes problems with the interface with BES, and then we don't see it until a red flag is raised and we monitor, because it's not our system, it's theirs, and we don't have any administrative rights. For that reason, the department has built its own part of that system that does that function, which we are now implementing, and we are working together with the National Treasury and the Provincial Treasury in order to overcome this very problem.
The average of payments for the 30 days? What's your average? If you must get an average, what's the average of payments payments made?
So, Chair, my Chief Director Financial Management indicates it's 1% of all payments that we make.
The average of payments made. So I'm talking about, it's a 15 days, 16 days, the average of payments made. Most of your payments goes over 20 days, 15 days, or is most of your payments over 30 days?
Thank you, Chair. So most of our payments, 99% of our payments goes through the system and is processed within the 30-day period. Only the 1% is in excess of 30 days, but it's between 30 and 40 days. Yeah.
There was a department here, I think yesterday, the day before, that said 13 or 14 days. And so I'm just checking the average pay. But you also have your national now, so that brings some difficulty where you develop your own system, you said, to monitor that. Member Konakontlo and Member Blecker.
Chair, my question is on the page, starts from page 233, on the limited bids.
Courtney, but just a bit louder because there's fans here. I think it's difficult to hear.
My apologies. Apologies, Chair. Okay, on the limited bids, I just want to ask perhaps if the department can actually send us a list that explains these limited bids. I understand you are a department that deals with billions, and therefore, at least this is about, if my maths is proper, is not a Jacob Zuma one. This is almost half of $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But I just want to understand what would be the reasons, of so many projects that you had to do under limited bid instead of your normal open bid process.
Curious, Member Lecker?
Thank you, Chair. My question, Chair, is on it starts on page 1217, where it says reconciling notes. I see there's an irregular expenditure that is reflected there. What exactly does that entail? Moving to page 218, Chair. Table C, where there's an irregular expenditure that was condoned. Do we need to be worried about anything exactly what it is that has happened there? Why was that amount condoned? What led to that, by the way? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And maybe just page 221, damage, damage and losses to road construction and maintenance, 85 cases.
Okay.
Let's give the department the opportunity to reply, and then if there's follow-ups, we'll do that. Thank you very much, HOD.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just going to ask Pauline to respond to the limited bid question. But in responding to it, then also give the context of the statement around it being a lot of limited bids in the department and what the reasons would be. Just to say that every single limited bid we do in accordance with the Provincial Treasury instructions. In other words, they give situations under which it is acceptable to do those. And if it doesn't fall within that category, we won't proceed. In fact, all limited bids above 5 million rand is consulted with the Provincial Treasury before we even consider going ahead with a limited bid. But having said that, I'm just going to have Pauline contextualize limited bids and then give an overarching view about what the reasons were. And then on page 217 and 218, I'm going to ask Bashir to respond to the irregular expenditure questions and to the damage and losses question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the HOD has rightfully said that limited bidding is done in terms of the Provincial Treasury instructions, and there's various categories in terms of which we can do a limited bid. Also, all limited bids above 5 million rand is done in consultation with the Provincial Treasury. So if I go to this list, there's 114 limited bids that we've awarded in the year under review. Of that, 45 of them relates to security contracts. We made use of the Provincial Treasury's security framework. And they faced a legal challenge on that framework, and they didn't extend the contract. So they've asked the departments to follow our own procurement processes to extend the contracts, and we've done it via limited bid process. So 45 out of the 114 relates to security. And if you take that out of the equation, it's actually 69 limited bids that we had. In terms of our total procurement for the current financial or for the year under review, we had 3,308 awards. So 69 out of that it's less than 2%. So it's actually insignificant. It's not that much. But if you have any other questions on the limited bids, we will be able to provide it to you. Thank you.
So, Chair, just before Bashir comes in, the reasons. So let me just go into the reasons, although there's a Provincial Treasury instruction which we can also supply. But the reasons would go into things such as where goods or services are designed or manufactured by a supplier. Because obviously we can't take one supplier's design and put it out to open tender. Another one was where the open market was tested and we couldn't find anything in the open market and we've run out of time, then we would approach a limited bid. In cases of emergency or where there's disasters, we would do limited bids because it's about where a supplier or contractor has proven their capability. So then you wouldn't go out in the open market because one, you have a factor of time as far as urgency is concerned, and two, you have the factor of proven capacity and capability to do the work. Specifically, if it comes to flood damage and the like, that's where we would do limited bids, and we've done quite a lot under the period under review because of the various floods and the disasters there. There's one or two more, Chair, but like I said, we are quite prepared to send the Provincial Treasury instruction. There's actually a section dealing specifically with limited bids saying under which circumstances are you allowed to do so. And all of these would have to indicate for the Treasury which one exactly are you selecting and where's the evidence of that.
Thank you. Through your chair. So the first question was page 217 in relation to the 114 million rand that is stated in the irregular expenditure note as under assessment or determination or investigation. So in terms of the National Treasury Irregular Expenditure Guide, there's a certain process that we have to follow before we actually account for irregular expenditures. So it basically starts off as an allegation, which we then have to assess internally. So the former Department of Human Settlements and then also the former Department of Transport and Public Works, certain matters that actually came from those two environments were carried over into the Department of Infrastructure. So what you see here, the 114 million rand, relates to three matters that we brought into this part E of the annual report. The one relates to an internal audit finding where there was an allegation regarding whether a certain contractor was appointed following a proper supply chain process. That allegation amounted to 49 million rand. Where we stand right now, that investigation has been completed and it was found that the allegation was invalid. So that matter will then in the new year come out. So then what remains out of the 114 million rand is the two other matters, one of which is a 49 million rand issue that comes out from a Provincial Forensic Services report, which currently is still under assessment. And then there's a third matter amounting to about 13 million rand, which also comes this third matter comes from the former Department of Human Settlements, where there was an expansion of an existing valid contract. That one is currently the assessment is complete, and it is currently a submission has been drafted for having it condoned. And in terms of the rules, that particular one can be condoned by our own accounting officer. It does not, based on the nature of the issue, it does not have to go to Provincial Treasury. Then on page 218, the irregular expenditure condoned, the 3.1 million rand. That then is various smaller matters that come from the former Department of Human Settlements. Initially, when they closed out their financial statements on the 31st of March 2023, there was letters sent to Provincial Treasury to have it condoned. However, Provincial Treasury came back to the Department of to the Department of Infrastructure, requesting further enhancements to those letters. Then we, as infrastructure, then resubmitted condonation requests, and they relate to various matters, mainly to the tune of issues relating to a service provider's tax affairs not being in order at the time of the actual procurement, or quotations which were signed off but not by the delegated officials. So that relates to the 3.1 million rand. Then in relation to the question about damages on page 221, so damages or losses in relation to road construction, those are 85 cases, and the total write-off there is basically 1,087,000 rand for the 85 cases. It comes to an average of 12,000 and odd. And essentially it relates to the road condition. There's potholes and people make accidents, and we then, as the department, make an assessment. If legal services gives us an opinion that we should pay it out, then we do pay it out after a thorough investigation. So that relates to the 85 cases. Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Members, is there follow-ups? Can we move on? Let's move on, members, to the following section. Part F. Part F is page 233 to 242. Members, any questions on Part F? If there's no questions, we're going to move on. Oh, sorry, there's a question there. I can't see you so far. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I wasn't here this morning, but I think I heard it on the TV with regards to the cut from national government to the department's budget. If the minister is able to perhaps maybe elaborate on what impact that had on the department's budget. And then also from a financial performance perspective, what impact has the floods had on how the department plans financially? Because clearly, sort of when there's been damage, as we've heard, you're not able to build certain things fast enough. So what impact does that have for the planning going forward in terms of how the department spends money? And maybe if the minister can perhaps talk about whether there's been any cost incurred on modeling around climate change and the impact that that will have on planning.
How many questions is that? So your minus one for your second round, if there's one in second round. That one that we did was the AG's report. We're going to get to the financials. Let's do the financials and simultaneously part G as well, because that relates to the financials. We'll get to that now. Member Lekker, and then Member Nkontlo.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on program 3 on transport infrastructure. I want to check, Chairperson, in relation to the reported achievement. Why is it that there seems to be an indicator that has not been achieved in this instance, where there was a planned target of 7453 and the achievement is 7149? Can we get specifics as to exactly what happened, why did we not achieve the targets? Then the last one, Chair, would be the number of kilometers of gravel roads upgraded to surfaced roads. Maybe I want also get an understanding there as to what were the reasons for that underachievement. Linking that also to getting an understanding in terms of infrastructure programs where gravel roads gets to be contracted in a way that you replace gravel with tarred road. Thank you.
Member Nkondlo?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's on page 252, under the notes, the 4.3 about this underspending. I just need some clarity, because I see it also reflect both in 11.4 other receivables in 272, and also I think in the funds surrendered to the revenue fund. So I'm trying to understand, because on one hand it says the money was a reduction by National Human Settlement, and then on the same vein it says it was reallocated. Maybe if you can just help me to understand what exactly happened here, and what were, if any, the implications, for the department if there were specific developments that needed to take place around it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Member 252, I just want to, the explanation is there, underspending of reduction of 250 million human settlements department grant by National Human Settlements. We just had a discussion with the AG about the words they use. There should be better intergovernmental coordination, because national gives the money, you have targets, you can't make your targets because you didn't get your money yet, and then plots must be serviced because you must work with the municipalities as well. So it's difficult. And the recommendation they gave us, maybe you should look at what you have and then have targets on that. But waiting from national treasury, from human settlements, it's a major problem. Maybe you can just, Minister, if you can just respond to the first, and then we'll give over to the HLG. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair, because if you don't understand human settlements per se, you will believe everything you read in the newspapers, to be quite honest. Chair, we need to understand that there's a planning cycle within the human settlements component where we draw up a draft business plan for the new financial year. And this time of the year around, we submit an adjusted business plan, because then we have a clear line of sight over which projects can deliver, which can't, where we need to shift money to. We very seldomly return money because we can shift between projects. But two crucial things happened in consecutive cycles in last year and early in this year. The members will recall on the 17th of October 2023, actually all provincial departments of human settlements, as it's called, were informed of a cut, but also all provincial departments in all provinces. Remember, there was the negotiations in terms of the wage increase, and somebody had to carry the brunt, and sadly, all departments actually had to carry that burden. So there we were already cut by 214 million. Now, if you look, it's in October, which means in February 2023, we already had our business plan for the year. We had commitments to municipalities. We had specific HSDG expenditure patterns we were measuring, but also ISUPG. Now, this is just the HSDG component, which delivers your top structures and the servicing of IRDP sites. So already there we were massively affected, and the HSD and the team can respond to that. But then in December last year, we had a consultation process with the National Minister. We were only 4 provinces, because the October cut in 2023 ultimately had a massive impact, and all provincial departments had to resubmit an adjusted business plan before our adjusted plan itself. So we literally had to do an adjustment prior to our normal adjustment cycle. And we had a consultation meeting on the 9th of December last year. Now, for me, when I consult you and we agree to a follow-up meeting, it means that we're supposed to have a follow-up meeting And there's a specific process when the National Department of Human Settlements reallocates funding, which means there's supposed to be a gazetted second adjustment budget process, which comes through Provincial Treasury and then ultimately it flows into our own process. But nothing happened after the 9th of December. The festive break, which you all agreed to we would take. My department prepared a plan B for them, how we will be able to still ensure that we perform in terms of HSDG and ISUPG, because they wanted to know what percentage of the HSDG grant we'll be able to spend before the end of or by the end of the financial year, and what component of the ISUPG. And Chair, that unilateral cut without following the processes I've just mentioned was 250 million gone. Now, you already had a business plan. You've already informed the municipalities. You've just gone through a cycle of an adjustment business plan. And now you have to further look at the 250 million cut, because remember, we have commitments with municipalities. They take our provincial government gazette to their councils in their adjustment cycles. So this was a very negative cycle for us. But also in 2023, 57.189 million, again, from the ISUPG, which is focused on informal settlements. So in the month of October 2023, remember to absorb the salary and the wage agreement. And that is what we as a sector, and I mean, other provinces had to give, or they were reduced by a lot more. So we've never given back money for underperformance. But the problem is, and you will pick it up in our APP, we've had to adjust our targets in terms of top structures, service sites, because of not one, but 3 cuts in 2 different grants. And Gillian, that is the massive implication for us. Infrastructure isn't like you fixing a tire. We have a process. We consult with municipalities, and if they are not ready, we then ask them, okay, what we will be doing, we will be sadly in the adjustment cycle taking your money and giving it to a municipality where we can actually spend and deliver. But I mean, when you unilaterally get a 250 million rand cut, you haven't even consulted the local municipalities. But this also relates to instability in municipalities. And the 4 provinces that have been massively affected by the unilateral taking away of money by the National Department was our province, it was Gauteng, it was KZN, and it was the Free State. And our 250 million, which was just taken away, was given to Limpopo, and they couldn't even spend the 250 million. So I'm giving it a picture because many a times distorted versions of actually what happened seems to be believed, instead of people just inquiring about the entire cycle and the process of infrastructure as a whole. I know that from the roads component, and the HD and the team can expand on this. So you understand, even on that side, grants were reduced. And I'll hand over to the HD and the team now, but just from my side, because I've had to respond to this, and I'm happy that I finally have the opportunity to give you the full figure breakdown in the process that actually led to that. HD?
Thanks, Chair. So just to ledge on to that, it wasn't just in the human settlement space that we encountered in-year cuts. For the in terms of conditional grants, for the expanded public works program, we had a 650 million rand cut. For 650,000 rand cut. For the provincial road maintenance grant, we had a 51 million rand cut. Now, again, your previous question around maintenance, Member Nkondlo, and now we had all of the floods, and you had an in-year cut of 51 million rand to the particular grant that focuses on maintenance, which is a grave concern for the department. So if we asked what is the impact, even if we try as a department to assist municipality, let's say in their road space, but you sit with this and you add flood damage upon flood damage. By way of example, in December of 2023, at the end of December, this department needed 850 million rand just to respond to 70% of the total flood damage that was caused. What that meant is all the roads programs that we would normally have, we had to push back because we didn't get any money as a disaster response from any of the national departments. What we did get was in the adjustments, but with the effect of this year, which is not the year under review, we received 350 million rand from the treasury for from the provincial treasury from unforeseen and unavoidable funds. They could only give that because remember it was a period during which they were responding to the flood damage, but also making provision for the fire season because that was December. So you're sitting with those two things and it has a major impact then on our current roads programs that's planned for the year. And in fact, we were warning the Treasury at the time that given the situation, if this department needed to reprioritize 850 million rand internally, it would mean that our program is set back not by just one calendar year, but two. In terms of the normal work that we would have done from a planning point of view in the road space. So having said that, Chair, there were also questions on page 251 and 252, but just to clarify, Member Nkondlo asked, can we explain the thing about money being taken away and reallocated? So generally, like in any adjustment process, if money is going to be taken away from one department, then you adjust that department's budget by the amount that you're taking away before you're making a reallocation decision. In this context, just like Minister has said, money was taken away. We were not informed. We saw the publication in the DORA, which was published and a fait accompli that the National Department of Human Settlements actually reallocated the money that they were taking away in the human settlement space to Limpopo. Having done that, we wrote again to say, okay, you've made a choice. You can make the choice as the National Department. However, there now needs to be a second adjustment because we can't be held to account for a portion of money that is not under our control and that you have already moved to some other department. None of that happened. And that is what is meant with a reallocation without a second adjustments process.
Thank you very much. Members, other questions on RG? Can I just throw in one or two? If you can just explain 267, the expenditure on consultants, business and advisory services. 267 consultants, and then also the legal services. Which are the cases you dealt with there? I think it's most probably some of the previous ones, but legal services, I see you've got some expenditure there. And then also on page 269, your foreign travel, if you can just indicate on what that is all about, your foreign travel. And then maybe just, that's my two. Let me just go over my limit. I'm member. Is there any other hands? What's his name again? Just Member Johnson. Member Nkondlo, Member Johnson, you next.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just in terms of the expenditure on page 248, we note that 99.5% is a great spend for on program 3. I'm just curious to know the intangible assets, the 36.1% spent. I just want to, I know it's not, we're not speaking of big amounts here. I'm just curious to know what exactly is the intangible, or what is it referred to for the 36.1% spent. Thank you.
Okay, Department, we're going to go back to you and then we'll go back again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my Chief Director for Financial Management to respond to you.
Thank you, Chair. So for business and advisory services, that's core item. So that's the standard chart of accounts. It would indicate what you actually post to that. So you would process then in program 1, we had a few projects where we insourced services because we didn't have the existing capability in the department. So for that, these projects that we had specific advisors appointed for, which is the Outscape Garden Precinct, Stickland North, Bella Enablement, and Sea Point East projects that we had, and then the energy exploration from gas to power. We also had CIDB build scheme standards that we had to pay there. Program 2, we had expenditure on the AIMS projects, the PPF projects, the facility conditions assessments. And then for Program 3, we had work performed on our overload control system, pavement management system, plant management system, road network information systems, provincial accident systems, project management administration systems. And then we also had additional expenditure on the OPSCAP for the implementation on certain of our projects. So that is the business and advisory question. For the foreign travel, we had certain officials that made overseas travels. I'm not sure. Do you want to know what they did there, or who?
No, sorry, no, not. It's just was it successful and what we've learned from it. That's usually why you do the trips.
Yes. So these officials then went to explore new methods that is currently performed in the rest of the world, basically, and to upskill us and to make us aware of how we can implement new things in our existing projects. So it's that, and then the systems. Intangible assets is basically the systems that I just alluded to for Program 3, which is the pavement management systems, etc. Those systems they use to perform the planning on the ramp system, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Member Petleka, and then Member Nkontlo.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one and on the explanation on page 274 about the USDG and informal settlement grant. Can we get an understanding exactly as to what this amount was intended to do and what really happened there? And the second one is on 275. Can I be schooled around, I think this is the third one, on 17.1, the last asterisk about all unconfirmed intergovernmental payable balances. Can we get an explanation around this as well? Thank you.
Member Nkontlo.
Chair, this is my last question. I just want to check with the department. I think from the AG's report, I think one of the things that the AG talks about is the impact of achievement of planned targets against service delivery. Now, I think one on Program 2, AG says a 44% achievement of the targets. But I think one old question would normally ask is the relationship of achieving or non-achievement versus the spending of the budget. So for me, I think HOD, perhaps you could explain such a relationship when a program achieves 44% of its target, but its budget is spent is almost more than 90%. What exactly have you done with the money if the very essence of your targets are below 50% achieved? And secondly, I think under Program 4, one of the things that the AG picks up, which I think is as per submission by yourselves, is the lack of cooperation by dwellers in informal settlement. And I'm trying to understand what are mitigating strategies we are putting in place, because I think with the growth of informal settlement, the stakeholder relations or engagement between formality, which is whether government or private sector, when you have sent them to do upgrading, is becoming a serious issue. And it's becoming a serious issue because sometimes people who are outside of formal setup just believe that those that are formal just come in and want to dictate or believe that they've got the best thing that have ever happened since Christmas. So how are you dealing with this? Because this has got a serious impact on service delivery, especially on one hand, we will talk about trying to upgrade those informal settlements, especially with climate change. We'll have all these particular problems where you can move. So I'm interested what mitigating, especially in dealing with relational issues in the informal space, which actually delays plans of government over and above construction mafia. Thanks.
So page 275, I'm looking at note 17.1. It's about private contingent liabilities as private individuals claim against the department. And I know it's an Annex 2B. It just gives the cases open. If I can just get some clarity on that. And of course, this is a big problem in note 22. It says here at the bottom, it should further be noted that not signing the lease agreements of unlawful occupants of government properties. That's if you can just maybe, we're looking at a massive problem, and what is the department, what's happening in that space. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. So I'm going to respond to some, and then I'm going to ask Shafira to just respond to the financial tables and Lapika to give some input in the human settlement space. So, Member Nkondlo, you're asking about achievement or non-achievement of targets against the spending of the budget. So what you must also understand about the targets and the target setting and when the achievement is measured is there is a timing difference. So we can't, sometimes when we, depending on how the target is set, and Bashir can go into the details, but it would mean that something can't be counted as achievement of a target as at that date, but immediately thereafter or a week thereafter the thing is achieved and we have to make the payment or the progress against the achievement. So in a lot of these cases that happens because the cutoff time and the date aligned with the description of what is to be achieved is set right up front. So by way of example, if we say we needed to pave X kilometers of roads by 31st of March, if that work is only completed and the indicator is a final account or a completion certificate, and the certificate is issued issued a week thereafter, then we can't count, even if the work is completed, we can't count it as part of the achievement. But in program 2 specifically, I'm going to let him just give you some details around the achievement of the targets in program 2, because that would also give you a sense on whether the work was completed or not completed in this context. Then program 4, and I'm going to ask Lipika to just elaborate, but you're talking about the lack of cooperation by dwellers in informal settlements, and it's true, it is a major problem. Not only because of the fact that it delays whatever development we have for that particular project, but also because not all of the informal dwellers are qualifying people. So now you sit with a mixture of people that would qualify for an upgrade and to have that opportunity, and foreign nationals by way of an example. And distinguishing between these two things is an important aspect. If I can make an example, like in the Drifsense case, we're going in there and you're trying to make sure that you address the problem, but not all of the people that's there actually qualifies for these opportunities. So that's where the strain comes in. And now you have to draw a distinction between those people that would legitimately qualify and those people against whom we should be issuing eviction orders. So we are working closely with legal services also as far as this is concerned, very much also having to push the issue because, of course, at the moment, the model that we use is via legal services through the state attorney to then appoint senior council members in order for us to get eviction orders, interdicts, and others. And what we have now is we sit with a problem, delays from the state attorney side, three-court system from the legal side. So you don't get the best person in that field, you get the cheapest person in terms of quote. These are some of the issues that almost debilitates the department in responding quickly to this kind of problem that we are addressing through our legal services with the national departments. But this is just some of the challenges and some of the things that we're trying to do. Lapika, I don't know if you want to add, and after you then Bashir on the public works achievement and then Shafida on the tables. Thank you.
Maybe just briefly, there are three different types of grants for human settlements from national government. The human settlements HSTG, which is for TOPS and service sites, and then ISUPG, which is informal settlement upgrade. And those funds are allocated to provinces, and then provinces work with the municipalities and disperse. The USDG is the urban settlement development grant that is directly given to the metros from national government. To add to what the HOD said, with the communities, human settlements is extremely external facing, and there are networks that we have in place where we have structured engagements with our stakeholder unit in the department that helps us manage it. So every time when we go into community, we will first meet with the leadership, and then we will meet with the bigger community if needed. In those instances, both the minister and the head of department would be in those engagements depending on the extent of the engagement that is needed. All those community meetings are minuted and we have follow-ups. Thank you.
Thank you. Through your chair. So in program 2, essentially, besides being impacted by budgets and the fact that we're dependent on other departments like education and health in setting our targets, we have also internally within the targets that we can control ourselves, which is general infrastructure, in certain cases actually exceeded our targets. So it's actually a combination of the impact of the budgets, which we don't directly control, as well as also receiving information late from departments like education, or where they completely leave it out of the APP that impacts on what we actually included in here. Just one other thing on the program 3 side on the same issue was the same impact of budget changes impacted on certain types of targets being exceeded. For example, the surface roads resealed and the gravel roads rehabilitated, again coming down, surface roads resealed going up, and this is all impacted by the changes in the plans in terms of the floods. HOD, was the question about the 17.1, the public liability claims? Yeah, so the public liability claims as well on in 17.1, what we've got here as contingent liabilities is really the total value of the claim that is actually submitted by the public. On page 300, it gives you the total number of cases that we are managing. But if you looked at what we mentioned just now, what we actually end up paying out, if we have got 268 million rand now as contingent liability, what we recognize as contingent liabilities, a very small percentage of that eventually actually gets paid out. Some of these cases are actually running through the courts for more than 10 years, and it relates to various issues like accidents on the road where life was lost, future income, etc. So that's the nature of it. We've got details about each case if you're interested. It's not, of course, included in the annual report, but it's basically road condition and how it actually contributed towards accidents, if at all, and the final outcome is uncertain, therefore it's included as contingent liabilities.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 275, 17.1, the various departments question. So the department transacts with different other departments, and then when we then at year-end need to confirm balances, if we don't receive a certificate of confirmation back, then that balance then is disclosed under contingent liabilities as an unconfirmed balance. Then on page 274, the advances received. So the previous Department of Human Settlements and the City of Cape Town had certain arrangements with specific projects where they co-fund projects in order to accelerate certain of it. So as the projects then progress, we would then expense it when we receive valid claims against it. I hope that answers everything. Thank you.
The one on 278, what's it? The one that I said about unlawful occupants of government properties could result in the department to risk losing 1.9 million rental income.
Sorry, I don't think I've managed to grasp the response on 275.
Okay, that now. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So the various departments, the 1.4 million, those relate to balances that other departments owe us, DOI. So when we send out letters of confirmations to the various departments, if they don't respond back with the balances and say, yes, we confirm that this is the balance is correct, then we don't recognize it as a payable, but then as a contingent liability, because there's still uncertainty around the amount or the timing of it. I hope that answers that question. And then when it comes to the unlawful occupations of government properties, the HOD has alluded to when the tenants does not want to sign lease agreements, we cannot just evict them out of the properties. We need to then go via legal services and the state attorney, and through the proper processes, either we get a signed lease in place or the tenants then, or the illegal occupants is then evicted. I hope.
The reason I'm asking that, because that's a major problem. It happens all over, and the minister always mentions that in the House. You know, you're going to have this ongoing problem. So I just, you know, and there's potential losses for the department. So actually, maybe, Minister, if you want to elaborate how I know it's difficult because you can't have security all over. Just give us some background, and because I know this is a major problem. We hear about that all the time.
Chair, if I can, and the HLE will expand on it, and this is now reflective on the current financial year and moving forward, because obviously we've sharpened up a lot of our own processes, given that it's always specific components of our rental stock in specific areas where this is a recurring incident. And we have put measurements in place to actually address that within the current financial year moving forward as well, because we are also relooking our entire rental portfolio, because the income versus the expenses, I mean, if this was a corporate business, you would rather sell off your losses than maintain it annually. But also in some of these instances, the perception which people have is, but my mother has been renting this for 22 years, I'm allowed to stay here. Then the mother passes away, and in our case, if you're not the spouse directly linked to the dearly departed, you must vacate our facility. So we have been actively engaging and trying to empower these people, because rental stock is not ownership. And for some other reason, because many of them have been renting for decades at an end, for them they perceive it to be their own asset, which actually legally it is not. And we have put mechanisms in place in the year under review, even where we are busy updating our rental agreements, looking at systems, you know, to actually indicate to us when a tenant's contract is coming closer to an end. But again, We might have all the best intentions, all the best systems. It's the end user that's the problem in our case, and the bulk of the stock is in the city of Cape Town. We do not have these problems. We do have stock in the two non-metro areas, which is Stellenbosch and Breda Valley, which we're actually transferring the asset to the municipality.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that. Is there any other questions? I'm just going to ask one last question, maybe here on 273, estimate of impairment of receivables. Now, I know it's impairment, it's note 11.5, impairment of base or debtors, and then over to State Attorney. I know you come to a point where you say we're not going to recover it. It's the expenditure is going to be more than, so at this point, where do you draw the line, to say this is going to cost us more, getting the money back, just write it off?
So all our debts, once it becomes old, we send it to legal services and state attorney. So they would do that assessment and tell us. They would either tell us they think that we should impair it or not. But a big portion of this impairment amount relates to the 250 million that we haven't received, and it hasn't gone through an adjustment process, and therefore it needed to be impaired on this side as well. So I hope I answered your question.
Members, any other questions? Are we done? Thank you. Minister, I'm going to give you concluding remarks on the HOD, and usually I ask a member of the committee to do the thank you. So today it will be Member Nkondla to do the thank yous. Thank you very much.
Chair, again, I do want to thank the members for the relevant questions. And I do believe by the content and the expansion within your own question framework, I do believe that you are also realizing the difficulty of the sector within which we actually function and operate, where certain decisions which are made outside of our purview or our power of control has a negative impact on so many more things than just a tangible deliverable. So I do want to thank the members for your questions, also for hopefully that you seek to better understand our sector. But again, I do want to thank you for your oversight over my department, but I also do want to wish my department well again. For 1 year, clean audit, given the cultural differences, and we're just enhancing our mechanisms and processes to further retain what we have managed to accomplish together, given how big this department is. And I do hope after today that the PAC does realize actually how big this department really is. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just from my side to also thank the members. We can really see that you have gone through the documentation, you have immersed yourself in the understanding, and that your contributions and your questions is for us constructive, and we take it as such. And so can I say thank you to all of the members, but also to my team for the preparation, Chair. And with that, let me also thank you for chairing the engagement and hopefully letting us off the hook early.
Thank you. I was on the lift coming up, and the lady said, "Are you going to the 6th floor?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, you'll have to give answers." I said, "No, I'm asking the questions." Member Nkondla, over to you for the closing.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, let's thank the department, the minister, and the team. We know that you're operating in a department that is very complex, having a very difficult, not easy mandate, because on one hand, I think the economy hinges on the work that you do, whether it functions, to the best of the ability of itself, but also at the same time, it's an economy that must service the very people from a service delivery point of view. And I think there are recent developments that are actually threaten, especially the lives of yourselves as people who are at the coalface of this work, is something that is so unfortunate for all of us, because, you are mothers and fathers, daughters and sons in families, irrespective, that you are expected to do wonders. And we ask you all these questions here as if you are robots. I think we appreciate that you are human beings and you try your best when you wake up daily to do the work of this particular government. And I think we should thank you for the work that you are doing with all the challenges that are there. I think as members, we do appreciate, and indeed we ask the questions because we must also earn our checks that are already almost coming in the next few days, isn't it, colleagues? So, so you must take note of the timing that our energies become even more high, if we're coming for the 15th. But thank you very much, Chair, and to Minister and the team.
The team will stay behind our committee, but Minister, introduce. Members, we're just going to have Mr. Davids to read the resolutions, and then if you want to add, we can add to that, and then we've got one matter that we need to discuss there, but that's fine. Yeah.
Yes, Chairperson. Through you, thank you, Chair. Honourable members, there's just some things that I've captured that can be possible resolutions, which means briefings in next year that we will put on the scope of program or business plan, Chair, as well as possible RFIs, request for information. So, Chairperson, these are just the concepts that I've written. I'll just put it in the report in the proper context and in the proper resolutions, Chair. Just a follow up from Member Nkondlo on page 151, the inability to stem basically all of those risks, safety and security on page 150, 151. The department said that they are willing for the second risk, the first one and the second one, basically, to come and do a follow up briefing for the committee. So that will be a resolution. And as well, there was a concern from Member Nkondlo that we will just put as a concern about the maintenance of the infrastructure versus the insufficient funds that the department have. And the question was, is it a budgetary or a planning problem, Chair? The department said that they can brief us on that as well. And then from Mbeleka, a road maintenance action plan, the department indicated that they can give us the document. There's a report on that, and they can come and brief us as well on the backlog thereof. Then, Chair, on page 223, the limited bids, the reason for the limited bids, they indicated that the department can give us documentation and they can come brief us on that as well, Chairperson. Chair, and then, Chair, basically, Chair, you've alluded and some members alluded to to program 4, Chair, and the underachievement. So I'm not sure if we should put that as a resolution that the department can brief us on program 4, Chair, or should the committee just leave it as that, Chair? I'm really not sure.
The AG made some recommendations on program 4 because it affects to human settlements. So maybe we can put it down and then we can ask them, maybe did they implement? They must brief us. Did they implement the resolutions? Because it's an intergovernmental, what you call it, that they need to work out, with local government, national government. So I think we can ask them to brief us on that. Yeah.
That is the resolution.
That's the resolution, yeah. Is that all?
Chair, then just through you, Chair. Oh, thank you. Chair, through you, honourable members, just to notify yourselves that the SATCO PAC report has been sent to everyone for the inclusion, Chair. Chair, everything has been compiled. There's just one heading, note 4, that is empty. And that's for the committee, for the delegation that went, just for the inputs, Chair. It can either be that, Chair, or we can basically say that we will include the recommendations of SATCO PAC where possible within the business plan of scope for next year, Chair. One of the two.
I said to the Mr. Davids that next week maybe we can look at it. I'll give you some time just to look at the document, and we can then I can sign it off next week. Because we are here, just Wednesday we're not here, so maybe Thursday next week. It's enough time for members just to contribute. And I think I like the section 4 that we just do implement in the new financial year. I think that's it. Is there nothing else? Members, that is it. There's some refreshments at the back, and you are forced to go there because otherwise you'll get a bill for wasteful and fruitful expenditure. Thank you very much.